Hey guys, Church of Thought here. Just wanted to talk about the movie that we all were probably anticipating, and it just came out a few days ago. Got a chance to see it, The Matrix Resurrections, the fourth in the series. And I think it's been about something like 20 years since the original, or rather, since the third one, the original trilogy. And I had a few thoughts about it initially, and I decided to wait a little to make my review because I wanted to let it sink in. And I basically thought the movie was somewhat derivative. And by the way, there'll be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, then go ahead and see it. I think even with the rating that I'm gonna give it, which isn't gonna be all that stellar, it's still worth watching. It's still another movie in the series, and if they come out with future ones, they may be better. And this will probably be, like a link in the chain. So you'll want to see it, even if you're not the kind of person who doesn't see movies that are like less than a, let's say, 7 or an 8 or something like that. Like you only want to see good movies on the tomato meter or whatever kind of review system you use. You'll still probably want to watch it. It's not too bad. The things that I thought were interesting is it chased the love idea again. It chased that love theme. Like the first few Matrix movies, a large part of it was the love between Trinity and Neo, and their love could like conquer all, and that took center stage in this movie. And I kind of thought it was going to be like that. Like it was inevitable that their relationship will come about in the movie, but it became like just the centerpiece. Like the fact is, like this movie was like their love, their connection. If you just keep them close enough, but far enough away, just like at the right distance, where they can almost kind of be with each other but not quite, then you produce all this energy, which is kind of pseudo hand wavy in the first place. Anyways, it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like they brushed it off and kind of didn't really go over it, but it was like the love between them, or whatever kind of attraction produces more energy. Was that from the heat of their bodies, or is it because they affect everyone else in the Matrix mentally? So like those people's body heat, because from what I understand from the original movies, the body heat from the humans is what the machines are harvesting, right? That's why they're keeping them alive in this sort of comatose state while keeping them in the Matrix inside their heads, so they can harvest this body heat. But it doesn't exactly make sense to me how the love would like factor into like extra body heat. Like, are they implying that by having this intense feeling, their bodies are going to be like a few degrees higher like all the time, or what is it? It's kind of weird. But Neil Patrick Harris, who plays the analyst, I thought he was like one of the best actors in the movie. He did a phenomenal job. He says that like they give him the dreams that scare them, and then like they reel them back in, kind of like a cat and mouse kind of psychopathic kind of thing. And he found that I think he said like it's effective in some way, and that would make sense, I guess, for bringing up body temperature, like giving people these kind of traumatic experiences, or at least intrepid ones, and constantly doing it. But it all just seems kind of like just weird to me. It's just like, why not just inject the fucking people with adrenaline? Like, I'm sure the machines could produce chemicals. Like, if you want their hearts beating faster and shit, just like dope them up on adrenaline all the time. So the whole premise, like from a sci-fi point of view, of like producing more energy, it's just, I don't know. I didn't really buy that. Just seemed like poorly written. The whole movie seemed kind of poorly written. I do think it was like cool that they kind of try to complete the original series. What had happened, like give a continuation. What happened to the city of was it? I think the Nebuchadnezzar was the ship. I forget what the city was Zion, right? Now what happened to Zion, and now they have Io, and that was also kind of mulled over a bit. It's like, oh yeah, the city's hidden now. We don't fight, we hide. and like, you guys enabled us to have a peace treaty. I thought that wasn't like too badly written, but the city stuff with the woman who like reigns over the city was like so kind of just quickly, hastily done that I don't know. I thought it could have been expounded upon. The whole movie sort of felt rushed, um, and so what I thought was coming, what would have made the movie really great to me was like they took this idea that like Neo, like he's still in the Matrix, right? And he doesn't know that he's Neo, but he's like having these weird feelings. He even tries to jump off the building, right? I thought that was interesting and pretty like a pretty good writing. Like that apparently the analyst petitioned the rest of the machines to get enough, I guess, funds or resources, whatever you want to call it in the machine world, to repair his body. So I would suspect, although that wasn't really clarified, but that usually if you die in the Matrix, you also die in real life. So like by jumping off a building in the Matrix, did he somehow harm his real body, or was he already just damaged from the get go from that from movie 3 when his eye was fucked up? That they repaired him at that point. So it's not really clarified when they repaired him. If it's like after he jumps off the building, and then he just doesn't even remember that he jumped off the building, like they wipe him again, or after movie 3. Either way, he gets a full repaired body, he has his eyes working again. I thought that was interesting, that they repaired him and whatnot. I thought the jumping off the building and then they wipe him, that was also interesting. So it's like he almost like he feels he's in this fake thing just enough that he would even jump off the building, and like he's still in it, and they just put him right back where he was, and just like totally fucking with him with like the Matrix game. That I thought that was kind of interesting. Some of the jokes that were like, whoa, let's call it this, and then we'll have this like commentary, and like this will be the end of the series. Like they were like doing the whole meta thing of like talking about the movie within itself, and I don't know, it was kind of cheesy. Although I thought the idea of putting those memories into the Matrix as part of his game, that wasn't too bad in itself. That was kind of quirky. I just thought that they shouldn't be really discussing it and like oh, this the series and this and that. That just felt a little too like put on, like okay, we're throwing it in your face now. And then the flashbacks too, I thought that was like cheap and like not necessary. It's just filler. But yeah, I thought what would have made the movie like way better is if they took that premise of like something is wrong, something is uncanny, right? This uncanny valley, this sort of slimy, slippery feeling that something is just amiss. If they took that and like Neo, let's say he escapes the Matrix, right? Because the first time he rejects the pill in this movie, right? And when Morpheus tries to rescue him, and like Morpheus number 2, whatever, it's supposed to be the same Morpheus, but this time it's like a machine and that has his consciousness or something like that, right? But anyways, if they took that feeling of like this uncanny valley, I think it would have been really interesting if he escapes from the Matrix, or at least he thinks he does, but he didn't really. Like they fucked with him, like they almost sandboxed him. Like in the game, he had that thing called the what was it, like the loop thing? I forget what they called it. Like Neo had made a modal, like a dialogue, right? Like a box. A modal is just something that you get stuck in, right? Like if you're a UI designer, a modal is like a pop-up that you can't click anything under it until you X the modal, the dialogue. So like I guess a modal is somewhat like a prison in their terms. I never actually looked that up. Let's just see real quick. Modal. The word of construction. It just means a construction. So yeah, it's just like I guess a thing. But anyway, so this modal that they put Neo in, or I'm sorry, that he creates in his game. That was also confusing. Like somehow by creating it in the game, like he's allowing something to happen. It's just I didn't really get that. Like he's programming on his video game in the Matrix, and how does that affect? Like how is that an opening for anyone else? Is it because it's all code? That's never really explained. You've got to like leap in terms of belief or logic to understand that, even as a programmer like myself. But I thought if he escaped from the Matrix and then he was still stuck in it, that would have been the biggest and most fucked up twist. I feel like that would have been a interesting thing for this next movie, to literally make him feel like he's a rat in the fucking maze. Like he's like, oh, I've escaped from the Matrix. You know, he takes the pill. He thinks he's out. He thinks he's on a ship, and he just like pulls the thing out, and then he finds out he's in another fucking Matrix. Like do an Inception style. I feel like that would have been an interesting way to do it, because the action scenes were kind of shitty. Like they weren't like the original, and they even joked about it. They're like, oh, bullet time. Like let's add bullet time to the game, like classic Matrix, and then they ended up doing all that stuff. But they didn't even do it that well. I didn't think, like the only thing that was new that was like, I guess, I didn't even think it was that great. It was like, oh, this power they have is so immense, like Neo's love for Trinity, that like he could literally just do this kung pao fucking light, like light burst that just pushes everything like a megaton TNT. It's like, oh wow, really cool, guys. That was so inventive. So I don't know. It's just this movie was way less cerebral. The analyst was good. The fact that the analyst was like fucking with him was interesting. But once he gets out of the Matrix, like all the fuckery just turns into like shitty, lame action standoffs, which you kind of know they're no threat. Like the agents aren't a threat in this movie, really. Like nothing's like the people just like they go in swarm mode as zombies. You're just like, what the fuck is that? Like that's not really a threat. So like all the original Matrixes were like cerebral. Like he's at the train stop. He needs the key maker. He's got those ghost motherfuckers after him. And there's like all these different portals and different programs and like the Oracle and this and that. Here you just have a derivative version of Mr. Smith. The Oracle's gone, and like you have this fucking manta ray robot, and like you have a bunch of these, what do you call it, xenomorphs or whatever, the fucking digital computers that have like human body, like, but they didn't like make it any more cerebral. Like they should have made it more like Inception. They should have made it more like a mousetrap. Like he gets out of one place and he's still stuck in another. Instead, they just made it so simplistic. Like it was like they basically just took the Matrix, watered it down, and added some Michael Bay action. And so I give it a 6.5. Still worth watching. Still somewhat entertaining, but overall, like for a movie that you've anticipated for this many years, you think that I thought they were waiting because they we're going to produce something really good. Like, why would you wait this many years? But they even joke in the movie that it's like Warner Brothers wanted them to produce another movie, and it's like, well, instead it's a video game in the movie, and it's like, I guess they went for sort of more of a cash grab. Now, that's not definitive. They could have maybe really tried hard, but I don't think so. Maybe they, like you could say, maybe they hired bad writers or whatever, like, co-writers. I just don't think that the Wachowskis, given that they have the rubber stamp on the movie, like they have a responsibility for a creative responsibility to put something out that like deserves the Matrix name, and they didn't do that. The third movie wasn't so great either of the trilogy, but I still think it was like an honest effort. It's just hard when you have to produce like movie after movie, but they had so long to reflect upon how they wanted to continue this, and they did such a shit job. But sorry, I had an alarm set. But I do think that that the next one could be pretty decent. I think they just have to go for more of this computer science-y, philosophical, kind of Cronenbergish, like trapped in the machine type stuff. Like that's what made the original Matrix great. And what happened was, as the movies progressed, they made it more about like what's happening outside the Matrix, and that's kind of where it just doesn't really become interesting anymore. It's like it just becomes I don't know what movies to compare it to, but it's just like these people on a ship, like these bandits. Like it becomes like a ragtag, like cowboys, Indians. Like, oh, the cowboys are the machines, and the Indians are like these humans who've escaped from the Matrix who are on a ship, and they're like causing chaos and sneaking around, and it's like that's not that interesting. Like it should be. And then at the end of this whole thing, it's like, oh yeah, now we're like, it was literally like the same as the third. In the third movie, I think, if I'm correct, or not the third, maybe it was the second. Neo like flies off, right? And he's like Superman in the Matrix now. He can do whatever he wants. And so in this fourth movie, now it's like Neo and Trinity like fly off, and they're like, we're just gonna do whatever the fuck we want, and like freedom to the people. And I don't know, it just seemed like so politically charged, and just such a, I don't know, just trying too hard to like shoehorn like ideals into a movie, like thematic principles that don't belong there. Matrix is supposed to be a sci-fi thriller, not like a political or like socio. I don't know. It's just not supposed to be that type of commentary, in my opinion. It should be a commentary about humanity. It should be a commentary about philosophy and consciousness and like those things. Not about. I don't think it should be a commentary that much about gender. I don't think, because like it felt like, okay, they're just gonna make Trinity like, oh, she's just as necessary as Neo. And I don't know. I think I sense, and this may be offensive to some, but I don't think it's offensive to say. I think, as we know, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was one or both of the Wachowskis underwent a sex change, and they're transgender. And I wonder if the motivation is like they have a politically vested interest, or like a societal interest in like promoting trans rights and like just I guess trans awareness, and they wanted to put in the movie that like, okay, like the females are just as important as the males. But I don't know if that's really the case. I mean, we already, like, that's already been a thing since the women's rights movement, but maybe they felt like they needed to have that to make it like egalitarian in the series. But I really don't think it's necessary. I don't think, like, I don't think anyone thought that Neo is the protagonist because he's a man. Like, there's plenty of movies that there's women protagonists, so I don't think it was necessary. I think it kind of was kind of like cliche and like memey to like need to do that to have like both halves be complete. And I think, I don't know. I wonder how that's gonna evolve as they go on, if they do future Matrixes. Because when you have two characters that are like on equal footing in some sense of like their strength and their abilities and whatnot, I think it can kind of sometimes detract from the movie. They're supposed to augment each other, not necessarily be equivalent. And here they've tried to almost make them equivalent, like the idea that they both have this mental fortitude and their love both boosts them to like proportions. And in this movie, she brought him up, so it's cute. Don't get me wrong, it's cute that he brought her up in the first few movies, and now she brings he up. She brings Neo up. She's able to fly, and he's not able to fly, and she saves him, right? So I guess, and she slits the analyst's throat, repairs it, and like, so she's got these insane abilities now that Neo used to have or still has. And I don't know, I just think it could have been written way better, more like some hardcore sci-fi, like fucked up uncanny valley stuff like Moon, Inception, Ex Machina, what else, The Cube, like God, there's so many good movies that like Existence, which I think The Matrix was inspired by, like stuff like that. It could have been similar to, but they went, I think, for more of just a like cheap resolution and like cutesy happily ever after bullshit. So yep, let me know what you guys think, whether you agree or you disagree. And if you have any good movie recommendations, let me know too. I need some. I was really looking forward to this, and I don't have much more to watch movie-wise, so if you know of any hardcore sci-fi movies, let me know. All right. Take care, guys. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Church of Thought out.